Hey, Marty.
Hi.
Zoom's being difficult for me right now, so I may have to restart it.
How you doing?
Doing all right. Can you hear me okay?
Where'd Rabbi go tonight? Scott, do you know where Rabbi went?
Hey, Marty.
Hi.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Zoom's being picky.
You know where Rabbi went?
He said West Hartford to do a blessing at St. Francis Hospital.
Oh,
And grab my
that's where they did my second hip replacement.
yeah. We're almost done with this book.
Yeah. We'll actually finish it tonight. It's gonna be a
Okay.
short night.
Yeah, I've got to pick up the volume before this one.
Oh, you don't have that. That's right.
So I've got the one after it. I've got volume 3,
Right.
and then I've got Bava Basra 1 and 2.
Yeah, you need chapters 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
What do you think of this Bava Metzia, this tractate?
I think it's good, and as far as the journey it takes you on and the discussion it generates.
I liked it because, I mean, in school, when I was young, this is where everybody starts because it's fairly, it's not super difficult to understand. Like since we've started, we've sampled a number of tractates. So we did 1 or 2 books of each one, but we did Shabbos and Brachos and Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin was, of course, the court, and Shabbos, of course, is Shabbos, and Brachos was blessings. It was mostly, I mean, it had a good portion on the Shema and other things, which was very useful. So Brachos I thought was really good, but Sanhedrin really got into details, and Shabbos was really so detail oriented, and it was difficult, really difficult to understand. And that was for me now.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be much, much better for all of us if we did this Bava Metzia, because it's about money and we can understand that.
Yeah.
And I like it. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's intuitive. Hopefully we got some more participation.
Yeah. Yeah, there's only like 3 pages left and we're done.
Yeah.
No, maybe more.
Yeah, today's been a fixing day. Taking apart a 3D printer and getting things cleaned up and doing some CAD work for work. I started independent engineering consulting this week.
Oh, wow.
So that's been good. not too much, or not too, nothing too heavy. Basically strength of materials calculations and stuff like that
Hmm.
for a solar project out in the Bahamas.
Wow.
I might be going out to the beach sometime.
How'd you get that job? I mean, how did you contract with them?
So there are a few freelancer apps and websites. So I went with one called Upwork.
Mhm.
I put my resume on there and fill a bunch of stuff out. And it's kind of like LinkedIn, but useful.
Oh, wow.
And then you get to bid on contracts.
Hmm.
So pretty neat. Got picked up right after we got back from our trip.
Oh, that's good.
And I think tomorrow I'll be playing with a plasma cutter.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Ooh,
Hey, Neil.
that's fun.
Yeah.
Hello.
I've seen them. I've never touched one. I think I'd be dangerous.
Well,
We
For,
we had a guy at Marlboro Arts who owns a service station in Hebron, and he used their plasma cutter to cut this big picture of a fish out.
yeah.
Really neat.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was playing around with software today. There's part of the teaching that we do over the manufacturing apprenticeship center over at Grosso Tech, which is, just a couple of shops in the building owned by Three Rivers.
Yeah.
Where they do welding in one of the shops. And that's where they moved the plasma cutter over to. And high school's been getting use out of it, but we haven't gotten too much use out of it. So now now that the high school's out for the summer, we want to put it to use for our stuff.
Oh, wow.
So
Did you ever hear what happened with the welders at EB building a grill? Did you hear about that story?
oh yeah. Yeah, I was at
Oh,
PMT when that happened.
Oh,
Do tell real fast.
so EB welders have to keep up their quals. In
Oh,
order to
electron
keep up their
beam
qual-
welders. I've
What's
used
that?
them. Electron beam welders.
No. Electric boat.
Electric boat. Okay.
Thermal
Sorry.
dynamics.
Electric boat has a contingent at the submarine base. And
Okay.
they have to, like all the welders everywhere, but in particular welders who work on submarines, they have different levels of welding and they have to keep up their qualifications by actually doing welding. So they did some welding and they created a huge submarine shaped or submarine modeled grill,
Yeah, it was a big smoker.
a big
Good.
smoker. And of
Good.
course, somebody found out about it and complained, and I don't remember all the specifics, Scott might know, but somebody complained about it. I mean, all they did was they did their welding, right?
They practiced.
So the government considered it their property and they took it and they wanted to take possession of it. And EB had no problem because EB's management was really upset that this whole thing happened in the first place. They didn't know anything about it. It was the welders. But anyway, you want to add anything to that, Scott? You were there.
Yeah, so the whole reason that thing came into being is because at my first go around with PMT from 05 to 08, we used to do smoked meats as fundraisers. So our couple of civilians from NAVC who headed up PMT, they bought this thing for us, and then we'd come in at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and we'd get it up to temperature, and we just smoke meat until lunchtime, and then serve it, and we'd make a killing. And it was always popular. Everybody would come from all over base to it. Well, they tried doing over at the R1 shop. Over at the R1 shop, across from Pier 17, they tried to put on barbecues and stuff like that and flip burgers, and they'd never get the same turnout. So one of them got the idea that, hey, PMT can smoke meat, so can we. But they didn't have anything to do it with, so they decided to build it.
So of course, the government's paying for these guys to be doing this work, and they're doing work, which they probably had to do anyway, but they probably could have done it in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
I mean, I was working on the government contracting team when we heard about that. It was so funny.
Yeah, it was on 4 wheels. It had a steerable front axle that you could tow it behind a truck with. And when they put the kibosh on it, they had already finished it. And they parked it out back of R1, so it sat there collecting rust and dust. And then they got tired of it sitting around back there, but it looked so good that they decided to tow it out next to where you walk up to raise the flag for subbase. And they had it sitting there for a while. And then I don't know where it is now. I think it made its way back over to EB, but
the government took possession of it. It's ours. We paid for it. Oh, that was funny. All right, we're on. Hi, Arlene. How you doing?
Good. How about you guys?
Okay, we're just talking. We're just telling old sea stories.
I wish I'd gotten in on the front end. Sounded like a good story.
We're on page 82A2.
Yeah, that's what I got.
And we're on the left-hand column, the last paragraph where it says the Gemara makes a third attempt to explain.
Okay.
So the Gemara makes a third attempt to explain the dispute between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer. Ella mishkano shelo bishat halva ato. Rather, in a case where he took the security at a time other than when he made the loan. That is, he took it after he attempted to collect payment. Kule alma it. Lahu Rabbi Yitzchak. All except Rabbi Yitzchak's ruling. Vahacha b'mishkano bishat halva ato. But here in the Baraisa, the case is that he took the security at the time he made the loan. Ubishomer aveda ka milf lene. And Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva argue about the status of one who is guarding a lost object. 17, Neil.
Okay. That is, someone who found a lost article and took it home to safeguard it until he could return it to his owner.
The Itmar Shomer Aveda, for it has been stated concerning the guardian of a lost article, Rabbi Amar B'Shomer Achinam. Rabbi says that he is treated like an unpaid shomer because he took it before he got anything for it. Rav Yosef Amar B'Shomer Savar, while Rav Yosef says that he is treated like a paid shomer because he is performing a mitzvah. Oh, that's a tough one. 18.
If one finds a lost article, it is a mitzvah to safeguard it until it can be returned to the owner. See Deuteronomy. The Mishnah in Sukkah teaches that while one is engaged in the performance of a mitzvah, he is exempt from performing another mitzvah. Thus, if while a person is taking care of a lost article, someone asks him for charity, he is not obligated to give charity. Rav Yosef argues that this saving is considered a financial benefit, which renders the guardian of the article a paid shomer. Rabbi, however, argues that since the saving is unlikely to occur, one who takes care of a lost article is only an unpaid shomer. Okay.
So this is an interesting one. So if you're doing a mitzvah that you might consider to be of low importance, and then another mitzvah comes up where it's of what you might consider to be higher importance, then you might think that I should just dispense with the first mitzvah and go to the second. And the Talmud teaches us that we always go to the one in front of us. In other words, the one that's staring us in the face, the first one we come to.
Yeah,
So that's what it's discussing here.
okay.
Can you tell me again the page? I'm sorry.
82,
82.
A2.
Thank you.
You in the right book?
I'm beginning, I think I am, but I'm not sure because,
It's right at the end.
yeah.
We're way down, chapter 6.
We may finish the book tonight.
Whoa,
82A2, right?
Yep.
yeah,
And
Yep,
we're at
I've
note
got it.
18.
I've got it. Thank you.
Okay. Like a guardian of a lost article, one who extends a loan is also performing a mitzvah. Thus, Rabbi Akiva, who rules that a lender is a paid shomer, agrees with Rev Yosef's view, while Reb Eliezer, who rules that a lender is an unpaid shomer, agrees with Rabbah's view. 19.
the form of financial savings delineated in the previous note can be found in connection with a loan as well. Since lending is a mitzvah, a lender is exempt from giving charity to a poor person who petitions him just as he is extending the loan. The Gemara proposes that Rabbi Akiva agrees with Rav Yosef's view that this potential saving can constitute payment of a shomer. Hence, Rabbi Akiva rules that a lender is a paid shomer in regard to the security. And if he loses it, he loses a corresponding portion of the loan. Although the lender receives this financial saving only when he begins to safeguard the security, it renders him a paid shomer for the entire time during which the security is entrusted to him. Rabbi Eliezer, however, agrees with Rabbah's view that this potential saving is not considered a payment of a shomer. Hence, Rabbi Eliezer rules that the lender is only an unpaid shomer in regard to the security. See Rashba cited by Nemuke Yosef. Okay.
Wow. According to the preceding approach, Rabbi Akiva agrees with the position taken by Rav Yosef, while Rabbi Eliezer does not. The Gemara now investigates whether the view of Rabbi Eliezer can be reconciled with that of Rav Yosef. Lema de Rav Yosef Tana he. Are we forced to say that Rav Yosef's view is the subject of a dispute between Tanaim? Number 31.
Try number 20.
Sorry, 20.
There is
I don't
no
know what I was
question.
thinking.
There is no question that Rabbah must concede that his ruling is disputed by Tanaim. The Gemara has concluded that it is impossible to explain Rabbi Akiva's ruling except with Rav Yosef's principle, that is, the potential exemption from giving charity employed by one who is performing a mitzvah can render him a paid shomer. And Rabbah clearly disagrees with this principle. The Gemara is now asking whether Rav Yosef must concede that his principle is also disputed by Tana, Rav Eliezer, or whether it's possible even Rav Eliezer accepts it. Rashi, see also Tosafos.
Everybody recognizes, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that Tanaim was a whole group of rabbis in a certain time frame, and the
Yeah.
Amoraim were rabbis in another time frame. And
Okay.
the earlier rabbis always took, well, almost always took precedent in their, when it came to the ruling for halacha, because as it was explained to me, was those rabbis who were earlier were closer to God giving the Torah to the Jewish people, so they were considered more important.
They came there first.
They came first.
More important or more knowledgeable?
More,
Not more knowledgeable?
Not necessarily.
not necessarily more knowledgeable, but they did take precedent because they came first.
Okay.
It's kind of like,
They were chronologically
we-
closer to the
what's that?
Torah.
Yeah.
They
I
were
understand
chronologically
that.
closer to the giving of the
yeah,
Torah.
chronologically
So they were
close.
considered less contaminated.
Not to waste any time, but I remember having a discussion. It was one of my small arguments with Rabbi Sternberg, where I said, how can we consider that the Jewish people that came out of Egypt to be holy at all? Because, they were confronted with all these miracles and they did all these stupid things time and time and time again. They begged for meat. Oh, God took us out here to die in the desert. Same thing at the Red Sea, right? And then the same thing with the golden calf. How, after seeing all these great miracles, how could they be like that? And he said, because they were the ones who were there at the time of the Torah, and they actually heard God's voice. So even though they were all punished, including Moses, for one small sin, even though they were all punished and they couldn't go into the Holy Land except for Joshua and Caleb, they everybody who was over 20 didn't go into the new land. Yet because of where they were when they were there, then they were considered holy.
We also have the stipulation that the more righteous are punished more thoroughly.
Right.
So we us compared to them could be a big difference.
Right.
Yeah.
They also look at, I remember the old story, it's something I used to teach my students, was if you had a spot on a white sheet, it would be much more noticeable than if you had a spot on a nude spot on a dirty sheet. So all of us, none of us are perfect. We all have lots of little stains on our sheet, which is our lives, our soul, and so on, mistakes we've made through time. So one more, what's the big difference, I mean, that's the way I looked at it. But Moses had only one little tiny spot. So it was very noticeable.
Okay.
The Gemara answers, no, this is not necessarily so. B'shomer aveda dechule alma it lahu Rav Yosef. Concerning a guardian of a lost object, one could argue that both Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer, accept Rav Yosef's ruling. Bahacha, but here in the Baraisa, turn the page. B'malvet sarich lamash kon kamif lengay. They are arguing about a lender who needs to use the security. One, Arlene?
The lender uses the security and deducts the value of this use from the debt, according to Rashi. This is because otherwise it would constitute interest. So is it even right to use the security before the loan is repaid, or?
Well, imagine this, the security is a cow.
Yeah.
You have to milk the cow, okay?
Right.
So you now have this milk.
Right.
So you have to deduct that from the loan, because otherwise the milk would be extra, which would constitute ribis.
Well, that's true. That was a good example. I wasn't thinking of that as an example. I was just thinking of security in general,
Yeah.
like
No,
you give me money and then you use it before the transaction is complete. But
Yeah, but
great
it
example.
wouldn't be money, because if you're borrowing money, you wouldn't give money as a security.
No.
So
True.
it would have to be,
Yeah.
even land, the person could, not
Right.
like a cow where you have to milk it, but the
Yeah.
person could use this land, plant it and grow crops on it and make some money on it. I mean, why not?
Right.
You just got to deduct it from the loan.
Yeah. And actually you're enhancing the value, probably.
That's true. That's true.
Thank you.
You'll get my bill.
Oh, no.
Mar Savar, one master, Rabbi Akiva, holds that even in such a case, mitzvah ka avid shehil vahu, the lender is performing a mitzvah by lending money to the borrower, by yehi shomer sachar, and the lender is therefore considered a paid shomer in regard to the security. 2.
See 82A, note 19.
Umar Savar, while the other master, Rabbi Eliezer, holds that in such a case, la'o mitzvah ka avid, the lender is not performing a mitzvah. Shelach na'ato mitkavein, because his intent is only for his personal benefit. Vayehi shomer chinam, and therefore he is considered an unpaid shomer. 3.
The Gemara is suggesting that even Rabbi Eliezer could agree that Rav Yosef's principle, the potential exemption from giving charity enjoyed by one who is performing a mitzvah, can render him a paid shomer. In this case, however, Rav Yosef's principle does not apply because the lender is not performing a mitzvah. Since the loan was against a security that the lender needs to use, the loan is not motivated by altruistic considerations. Rather, the entire transaction is similar to a rental. The lender advances the borrower money and uses a security against this. His use of the security is effectively paid for by the loan, which is reduced in accordance with the rental fee. Since the loan is extended for the benefit of the lender, it does not qualify as a mitzvah, for Rav Yosef's principle is not relevant. The lender therefore remains an unpaid shomer with respect to the security. A renter is ordinarily a paid shomer, according to Rav Yehuda and 80b. In this case, however, where the lender is not an actual renter, he is only an unpaid shomer. And for further explanations, you can see a number of people.
So if you do if you watch something for somebody and you get joy from it, let's say it's not a mitzvah, maybe you're just getting joy from it. Does that also make you a paid shomer? I mean, does that, because you're gaining a benefit, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I watch my grandkids, right? I'm watching the grandkids. I'm an unpaid shomer, right? So, I mean, if that's the case, I don't know if you can do this with people, but if that's the case, I get joy out of it. So does that make me, does that mean that I'm now a paid shomer because I'm achieving joy? Or does that even mean that I have ribbis?
Yeah. You know, it's an interesting question, because don't we normally feel good when we've done a mitzvah?
Exactly. But here they're talking about a mitzvah. So, that's where the argument says you're being paid because you're doing the mitzvah.
Right.
But I'm saying, what if you're not doing a mitzvah and you're getting joy from doing it?
Okay. Yeah.
But that's irrelevant because there's no loan involved. You are simply doing a mitzvah. There is no loan, no lender, no borrower involved.
True.
Well, in a way, this is probably far-fetched, but in a way there is, because I think we're taught that the highest mitzvah you can do is for someone that can't repay you, someone who's passing away, for example, right? So whether you have an expectation or not, when you do a mitzvah for somebody, not even that person, but if somebody else does a mitzvah for you, it's in a sense a repayment.
Yeah, that could be.
You say, pass it on. I help you, Marty, and then Neil needs something, you help him.
Paying it forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a
Okay.
good point. So we still have to come to a conclusion on this. It does the mitzvah count as payment? The Gemara cites the closing arguments of our Mishnah. Aber Shaul Omer Mutar LaAdam LaHasbir Mash Kono Shel Ani Lahot Liot Potchet Vaholech. Abba Shaul says a person who lent to a poor man against a security is permitted to rent out the poor man's security in order to progressively reduce the debt with the rental income. The Tanakama, however, maintains that this is prohibited. Seems like a good idea, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I don't see why they have a problem with that.
Let the guy pay it back without having to do anything.
Let the security pay it back.
Yeah.
The Gemara decides the law. Amar Rav Chanan bar Ami Amar Shmuel. Rav Chanan bar Ami said in the name of Shmuel, Halacha ka'Abba Shaul. The accepted law accords with the opinion of Abba Shaul. Good. Rav Chanan Bar Ami continues with the qualification of Abba Shaul's ruling. The Af Abba Shaul lo Amar Ella B'mara Ufsal V'Kardon. But even Abba Shaul did not say this except in reference to a security such as a hoe, an adzi, or a cut. How do you say that?
Adze. It's a form of
Adze?
hatchet. It's a sort of a weird hatchet type thing.
Or a cutter, 4.
A cutting tool used by artisans to fashion saddles and the like.
Oh.
Okay.
Ho'il v'nafish agrai hu v'zutar pachatahu. Since their rental fee is great and their depreciation through use is small.
Abba Shaul's ruling applies only to articles whose depreciation is considerably less than the rent they generate. When such items are given by a poor person as security, it is in his interest that the lender rents them out, since this reduces his debt.
Oh, so they were concerned that perhaps depreciation might affect the poor person's object worse than just renting out the
Right.
tool. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we start the new Mishnah. This Mishnah discusses the laws of a porter who undertakes to carry a keg from one place to another. What could go wrong?
Yeah. Hey,
Stop and take a drink.
it's party time.
Yeah.
Hama'avir havit mimakom lamakom ushvara. If one removes a keg from place to place and accidentally breaks it, 6.
He stumbled and the keg fell to the floor.
Bain shomer chinam, bain shomer sachar. Whether he is an unpaid shomer or a paid shomer, 7.
That is, regardless of whether he was paid to move the keg.
Yishava. He swears that he was not negligent and he is not obligated to compensate the owner. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. 8.
According to the marginal gloss in our editions of the Talmud, the correct version of the text is Rev Eliezer, that is Rev Eliezer ben Shamua. What does that mean? According to the marginal gloss in our editions?
So if you look, the letters for both of those, Eliezer or Elazar, have the same letters.
Yep.
With the exception of a yud. So the question is whether it's Eliezer or Elazar.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you come over here to the text,
To find out, I assume.
it's spelled with a yud.
Okay.
So if you look on the text, it's going to be hard to find, but it's Eliezer with a yud. So
Okay.
that's why they're saying Eliezer.
All right.
But the note is saying that it could also be Elazar.
All right.
And they're two different guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's one of the problems with the Torah. There are a couple of words, and they're not many, but there's just a couple. And we say, how do we know what that word is? Because it could be different things
Right.
depending upon which vowels are on it, right?
Yeah.
And the Torah doesn't have the vowels. And they say part of that is the Torah being it's in the oral tradition. In other words, it was passed down orally what the trope should be and what the words were supposed to be. Does that make sense?
It can make a big difference, right?
It could in some cases. If you
Well,
look at the King James version of the Bible, they they translate Ari as a lamb. And Ari is clearly a lion. So you also have to look between Chumashim, how things are translated differently. If you ever have 5 minutes, take a look at the red Chumash versus, the blue Chumash that I use, the stone Chumash.
Yeah.
But it's not just because I use it. I mean, just the blue.
Yeah.
And then they also have the other one, the Hertz, which is the other one we have in our synagogue. So we have the red and the Hertz, the blue Hertz. And I also have the stone. You look at, I was showing my students, you look at the translations and they're very different.
Wow.
They have the same idea,
Yeah.
right? But they are different, in the actual translation. Hertz does a very literal translation word for word. So, it'll have thous and these, whereas the red book and the stone won't do that. They'll just have the, like modern English. So it makes it much easier to understand.
Yep. Ah,
But there is there's a number of specific places in the King James where clearly they've mistranslated it and not exactly sure why.
Huh.
I mean, how do you take Ari, which is lion, and call it a lamb?
right.
Okay. We were on 7.
We just finished 8.
We just finished 8.
Yeah.
Okay. So Reb Eliezer says, Zev Yashava. I too have heard from my teachers that both this one, an unpaid shomer, and that one, a paid shomer, swear and are not obligated to pay. V'chameha ani im v'cholin zev yishava. However, I wonder how each one can swear and not have to pay. Now,
Gemara will explain Rav Eliezer's difficulty according to Rashi.
well, that makes sense, right?
Right.
You and I have a disagreement,
Yeah.
and I swear that I'm right, and you swear you're right.
Yeah.
And of course, swearing was a big deal to them, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've covered that in a lot
Yeah.
of different places.
So, okay, so the Gemara is going to explain. The following Baraisa identifies the Tanakama of our Mishnah as Rev Meir and records a dissenting view. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught in a Baraisa, Hama'avir chavit v'lachavero mimakom lamakom. If one moves a keg for his fellow from place to place, ushivara, and accidentally breaks it, Bain shomer chinam bain shomer sachar. Whether he is an unpaid shomer or a paid shomer, yishava, he swears that he was not negligent and he's not obligated to compensate the owner. Divrei Reb Meir, these are the words of Reb Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, shomer china yishava. An unpaid shomer swears, no say shachar v'shalem, but a paid shomer pays.
The Gemara will explain Rav Yehuda's opinion.
Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Rabbi Eliezer says, Zev v'zeh yishava. I too have heard from my teachers that both this one, a paid shomer, and that one, an unpaid shomer, swear and are not obligated to pay. V'tameh ha'ani im yicholin zev v'zeh lishava. However, I wonder how each one can swear and not have to pay. The Gemara discusses each of the 3 views presented in this Baraisa. First, it points out a contradiction in the teachings of Reb Meir. Lememra de Savar Rev Meir. Does this mean to say that Rev Meir holds that nitkal la'o poshea hu? Someone who stumbles is not considered negligent? 11.
For Rav Meir ruled that the shomer swears that he was not negligent, The Gemara assumes that the Mishnah and Baraisa refer to a case in which it was known that the shomer was not less negligent than stumbling. However, it is possible that he was more negligent than stumbling. Therefore, according to Rav Meir, he must still swear that he was not legally negligent. Furthermore, since Rav Meir states that a paid shomer is not obligated to pay compensation, it is clear that Rav Meir regards stumbling as an unavoidable accident, for which even a paid shomer is not liable, according to Rashi, and you can see Ritva and Ran. And see Tosafos, who asks why the porter is not liable under the laws of Aram Haman Monk, a person who damages the property of another through his own action.
So does it look like they're all in agreement that an unpaid shomer just swears? So the disagreement is only the paid shomer?
That's how I'm reading it.
Yeah,
Okay. Vahatanya, but it was taught in a Baraisa. Nishbara kado velo seal ko. If one pitcher broke and he did not remove its pieces, nafla gamalo velo he'emida. Or if his camel fell and he did not stand it up, 12.
A person was carrying a pitcher or leading a camel in a public area, and he stumbled, causing the pitcher or the camel to fall to the ground. See Bava Kama 29a.
Rabbi Meir v'chayev behezekan. Rabbi Meir obligates him to pay for their damage. V'chachamim omrim. But the sages say, patur midnei adam. He is not obligated to pay for the damages that they cause under the laws of man. V'chayav b'dinei shemayim. But he is obligated to pay under the laws of heaven. 13.
The Gemara explains that Rav Meir and the sages argue over 2 points. A, Rav Meir considers stumbling to be negligence because a person is expected to look where he is going. Therefore, if a person stumbles and causes an object to fall, he is liable for the damage that it causes while it is falling. The sages, however, do not consider stumbling to be negligence. Hence, in their view, the owner does not have to pay compensation for such damage. B, Rav Meir maintains that a person who leaves a hazardous object in a public area, even if he relinquishes ownership of the object, is liable for damage that it causes. Therefore, even if the pitcher or camel causes damage after it has fallen, he must pay compensation. But the sages maintain that a person cannot be held liable in a human court for failing to remove a hazardous object that he does not own. Hence, if the owner relinquishes ownership of his fallen pitcher or camel, he cannot be forced by a human court to pay for damage that it causes after it has fallen. However, since he is morally bound to remove the hazard, he is obligated to pay for such damage under divinely enforced law.
Wow. So does that mean that he pays in the world to come?
they keep saying that in, human court. So I assume there is some other possibility.
Because when they're talking about divinely enforced law, I
Yeah.
think they're talking about in the world to come.
Yeah,
We learned that bad people don't always get the punishment that we think that they deserve, and that's because they're going to get the punishment in the world to come.
okay.
V'kaima lan divnit kal poshea palige. And we have established that they, Rav Meir and the sages, are arguing about whether a person who stumbles is considered negligent. Rav Meir holds that stumbling is considered negligence, and hence a person is held responsible for damage that results from his stumbling, while the sages hold that stumbling is not considered negligence. 14.
See previous note.
So it's not considered negligence, but from our Mishnah and the first Baraisa cited above, it is evident that Rav Meir does not consider stumbling to be negligence. So there's a problem. The Gemara answers, Omar Rav Elazar. So here it's Elazar. There's no yud in the word. You might notice that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Omar Rav Elazar. Rav Elazar says, Tavra, it is indeed a contradiction. 15.
This translation follows Rashi. Yes.
Mi sheshana zu lo shana zu. He who taught this Mishnah and the first Baraisa did not teach this, the second Baraisa. 16.
There were two conflicting traditions as to Rav Meir's opinion concerning stumbling. The contradictory sources presented above reflect these differing traditions. The Mishnah and the first Baraisa originated with the school which taught that stumbling is not negligence, according to Rav Meir. The second Baraisa had its origin in the other school.
Seems to me that if you're in possession, if you're a shomer, paid or unpaid, and something happens to that object in your presence, you've been negligent.
Yeah.
Whether the negligence should be paid for or not is another question. But if you break it, crumple it, whatever, you've been negligent.
I understand what you're saying, but I think what they do is it's a semantic thing. They tie negligence to being culpable to repay.
Okay.
Right.
So they're just taking that word
Well,
and they're saying negligent is culpability to repay
Okay.
rather than the way we think of it.
All right. And I think not, when you say that, it reminds me that we've said this before.
I don't remember that, but
A while
think-
way back.
I think clearly I was thinking the same way you did, that you drop it, it's
If it's
you don't
damaged,
really have, you're not really negligent, but
Right.
if you're repaying, if you have to repay, then you're negligent according to the Talmud. So
Yep.
Okay. Where are we, Scott? That was 16?
That was 16.
Having discussed the view of Rav Meir, the Gemara analyzes the two other opinions recorded in the first Baraisa. V'ata Rav Yehuda Lameimar. And Rav Yehuda then comes to say, Shomer china yishava, no say sachar yeshalem. An unpaid shomer swears, but a paid shomer pays. Hi bi dine v'hai bi dine. Hi ki dine v'hai ki dine. This one, an unpaid shomer, is treated according to the law appropriate for him, and this one, a paid shomer, is treated according to the law appropriate for him. 17.
Rav Yehuda contests Rav Meir's classification of stumbling as an unavoidable mishap. He maintains that stumbling is more negligent than an unavoidable mishap, but it is not legally classified as negligence. It is comparable to theft and loss, for which a paid shomer is liable, but an unpaid shomer is not. Accordingly, Rav Yehuda rules that if the mover of the keg is a paid shomer, he is liable for its loss, but if he is an unpaid shomer, he is not liable.
See, once again, like you were saying before, Arlene, I think we look at some of these words and we're not exactly sure why they say it like that,
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
right. Exactly right. I do.
But I suspect that they talk about this for days and weeks at a time. Try to we're just getting the
Yeah.
cliff notes,
Basically.
But you could kind of take it from a business perspective. That's the way I'm looking at this is you have a guy or gal who's moving a keg and they're doing it for a businessman or a woman, right? So that business person grabs one of his relatives and says, go take this keg across town. Well, if that person's not getting paid, or we'll assume that person's not getting paid, and if they break the keg, then it's not very likely that they're going to be asked to move a keg again. Whereas if that business person grabs an employee and says, take this keg across town, that employee's going to be expected to take it across town, and the employee would be responsible, whereas the business person is taking the risk by using an unpaid shomer, and they understand that risk.
And also the unpaid shomer being basically frog marched into taking this across town is very possibly not as thrilled to death as an employee would be, who would feel a more responsibility.
Right.
That was 17.
Yeah.
I think. The Ata Rabbi Eliezer Lamemar. And Rabbi Eliezer then comes to say, Ein Gemara Bar Meir. Indeed, the accepted tradition does accord with the view of Rav Meir. Umihu tameha ani im lecholin ze v'ze lishava. However, I wonder how each one can swear and not have to pay. Bishlama shomer china. It is well in the case of an unpaid shomer. Mishtaba delo pasha ba. It is understandable that an unpaid shomer swears that he is not negligent with the keg and is thereby freed from having to pay for it. Ela shomer sachar ame mishtaba. But as for a paid shomer, why does he swear and not have to pay? Kilo pasha nami shalume ba'e. And even if he was not negligent, he still must pay. 18.
Rav Eliezer expresses amazement at the ruling that a paid shomer is not liable for the broken keg if he swears that he was not negligent. In the case of theft or loss, a paid shomer is liable to pay even though he was not negligent. Rav Eliezer does not consider stumbling an unavoidable mishap, for which even a paid shomer is not liable.
He makes a good point.
Yeah.
Rabbi Eliezer asks further, Vafilu shomer china nami, and even an unpaid shomer, hatena bimkom madron. It is acceptable that he does not have to pay for the keg if he stumbled on the sloping surface. 19.
For it is not negligence to stumble on a sloping surface.
Shelo bimkom madron. But if he stumbled on a surface that was not sloping, mi matse mishtaba delo pasha. How can he swear that he was not negligent and thereby free himself from having to pay? 20.
Stumble on level ground is nothing short of negligence, argues Rav Eliezer. Accordingly, even an unpaid shomer should be liable for it.
Wow.
even if he was goat roped into it.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand that, I guess. And we've talked a lot about Shomers. Oh, but you're doing a favor, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Something happens. Is he really responsible? He did it as a favor. He was asked to do it.
Well, Rebel Eliezer
person-
saying he should be negligent. Let's see how it turns out.
Okay.
Because remember,
I think-
he's one voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Saying the owner of the keg needs to carry insurance.
I wish this this particular version of the Talmud would give the halacha.
Yeah.
Steinsaltz,
Yeah,
I like this better because it goes, you have the Hebrew intermingled with the English, so you're actually reading the words of the Talmud,
Yeah.
and then having the English interspersed in there with the notes.
In this example, before you read it, what I was thinking was that, okay, so you're an unpaid shomer. You're just doing a favor. How can you be responsible?
Right.
You ask an employee to do it. Really, it's like having no insurance, the unpaid shomer, and insurance because you have a paid shomer. You're asking someone in your employed to do that. So
it's correct.
I don't know. He does it and it's an accident? Suppose it depends where you work. Some people make you pay for accidents.
Hmm.
And some companies don't.
Yeah.
Steinsaltz is moot to it in the halacha, so I'm not sure if there's an established law from this. Okay. So where are we? I'm sorry.
On page 83A1, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me just look for a second.
But here's a good one. I don't think they'll quite get to this one, but what if paid or unpaid, they're carrying a keg across town and it gets struck by lightning and it's an act of God?
Yeah, I would think that would
What
be
an insurance company would consider an act of God.
Yeah, I would not consider that anyone was negligent. It's just the great galactic crapshoot.
Yeah. But if you consider it as insured or uninsured, if a business asks a person in their employed to do it, and something happens, you'd think they would just take that loss.
It depends.
Depends on what it is.
It depends on the function of the person. If that function is within his job description, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
then yeah, he would be negligent under most circumstances, not counting lightning strikes.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's not within his job description, then that makes it a little different.
Yeah.
So here's what the halacha says regarding some of this. It
Ah.
says he must bring proof and be exempt. If a paid bailee claims that the deposit in his care was lost as a result, now this is a paid bailee, was lost as a result of circumstance beyond his control. There were witnesses to the accident. The bailee must produce those witnesses, and then he's exempt from liability. Excuse me, 1 second. Yes. Oh, cool. Okay, I'm in class right now. Okay, that's cool. You found it outside?
It was in the house,
Oh,
and
wow.
then I caught it on my hand, and I was just chilling there.
Okay. You going out with that?
Yeah, we're going swimming.
Good.
Oh, this is so cool.
Okay, so he must bring, if a paid bailee claims that the deposit in his care was lost as a result of circumstances beyond his control, there were witnesses to the accident, the bailee must produce those witnesses, and then he's exempt from liability. If he fails to produce those witnesses, he has to pay for the lost deposit. If there were no witnesses, he takes an oath and then he's exempt. But what if he's an unpaid?
Yeah, I think it's talking about that particular part in this next paragraph.
And that's really all. So I guess there's no real discussion if he's an unpaid bailee. No one really, or shomer. Nobody disputes that. Okay.
Okay.
So this is at the top of 83, A1.
Mhm.
Rabbi Eliezer continues. V'afilu bimkom da amad ron nami. And even if an unpaid shomer stumbled on a sloping surface, how can he free himself from having to pay merely by swearing? Hatenach, heva dileba ra'aya. This is acceptable only where there is no possibility of proving his case. That is, the accident was not seen by witnesses. 1.
He broke the keg in a place not frequented by people.
And that's kind of what the Steinsaltz was just telling us about.
Yeah.
Aval heicha deika ra'aya. But where there is a possibility of proving this case, that is, the accident was seen by witnesses, nete ra'aya nefi pater. Let him bring proof, that is, testimony of witnesses, that he was not negligent, and only then is he free from having to pay compensation. The Tanya, for it was taught in the Baraisa, Isa ben Yehuda Omer. Isi ben Yehuda says, Ein ro'el shevuat Hashem tiyeh bein shenehem. Scripture says that without observers, the oath of Hashem shall be between them both. 2.
Exodus 22, 9 and 10. The Baraisa quotes the closing words of verse 9 and the opening words of verse 10. Verse 9 discusses a paid shomer who is watching an animal. He is not liable for loss due to factors beyond his control. As an example of such, the verse states, and if it dies or is injured or captured without observers, verse 10 then continues, the oath of Hashem shall be between them both, and he does not pay. The shomer swears that the loss was unavoidable, and he is free from having to pay. Isai ben Yehuda infers from the juxtaposition of without observers to the oath, etc., that an oath frees a shomer from liability only where it cannot be presumed that there were witnesses to the loss of the entrusted item. But if there are grounds for assuming that witnesses were present, the shomer must prove his claim with their testimony.
So it's between him and God if there's no witnesses. If he's lying, God will settle up with him in the future.
If you do a false oath,
Right.
Yeah.
right? So it's what we said before. He's either doing, he's bringing his witnesses.
Yeah.
If there are witnesses, and if there's no witnesses, he does the oath.
And the question is, can we expect there to have been witnesses? If he's out in the middle of some mountain path, probably not. If it's the town square, probably.
It's a mountain pass, you just roll it downhill.
That's how he got into trouble. It came to an abrupt halt.
It wasn't wearing its seatbelt.
Yeah.
From this we infer, Hashem shall be between them both. From this we infer, Ha yesh roeh. But if there were observers who saw the accident, Yavi ra'aya v'yi pater. The shomer brings proof, that is the testimony of these observers, that his defense is true, and only then will he be free from having to pay compensation. 3.
Rabbi Eliezer's difficulty with Reb Meir's ruling, that is, even a paid shomer is not liable for stumbling, can be summarized as follows. A, stumbling on a level surface is negligent. Hence, in such a case, both a paid and an unpaid shomer would be liable. Stumbling on a sloping surface is not negligence, but is not an unavoidable mishap either. Hence, in such a case, a paid shomer would be liable. If it is likely that people saw the accident, even an unpaid shomer is obligated to pay unless witnesses corroborate his story. Reb Meir ruled without qualification that even a paid shomer is not obligated to pay, regardless of where he stumbled. Evidently holds A, stumbling even on a level surface is an unavoidable mishap. B, even if it is not likely there were witnesses, even if it is likely that there were witnesses to the accident, the defendant is not required to summon them in his defense, contrary to EC's ruling.
this brings up whole other questions. What if he goes to a place that's steep and that's what causes the problem? But shouldn't he be negligent for not trying to find a place that wasn't steep to transport it?
That's true, assuming such a place was there.
Assuming such a
mean-
place existed, right?
Yeah, that's true. That would tend to bring on the negligence.
If you're a paid shomer, you think you would consider that in what you take for payment.
Yeah,
The Gemara above on page 82b, the last page, stated in the name of Rev Elazar that Rev Meir's ruling in our Mishnah vis-a-vis Shomer is not liable for stumbling, cannot be reconciled with his position in a Baraisa. Stumbling is negligence. The Gemara now presents a resolution of this contradiction.
yay.
Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Omar Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Chia bar Abba, in the name of Rav Yochanan, Shavua Zu Takanat Chachamim Hi. This oath is a rabbinic enactment. 4.
Those 3, 4. According to Rev Chia, it is undisputed that Rev Meir considers stumbling to be negligence. Therefore, if a shomer broke the article of another through stumbling, he should be obligated to pay according to scriptural law. The rabbis, however, enacted that he is not obligated to pay, provided he takes an oath. The Gemara below will state the content of said oath.
That was this oath is a rabbinic enactment that was instituted for the following reasons. She'i ata omer kain. Because if you do not say that a porter who breaks the property of another through stumbling may take an oath and be free from having to pay, ein lecha adam hama'avid hama'avir chavit lachavero mimakom lamakom. No one will move. 5.
Literally, you will not have a person who moves.
Yeah. Keg. No one will move a keg for his fellow from place to place. 6.
Everyone will be afraid that he might stumble and break the keg. Although stumbling is classified as negligence and certainly avoidable, nevertheless, people are not careful in this regard, and stumbling is a frequent occurrence.
The Gemara clarifies the content of this rabbinic oath. Heichi mishtabe. How does he swear? 7.
He cannot swear that he was not negligent, since it is now assumed that stumbling is negligence.
Omar Rava. Rava said that this is the content of the oath. Shavua shalo b'chavene shavartiha. I hereby take an oath that I did not break it deliberately. The Gemara now explains the opinions of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Eliezer. It's pretty much that's pretty much stops right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Gemara, I guess that says it all, right? I didn't break it deliberately. The Gemara now explains the opinions of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Eliezer in light of Rabbi Chia bar Abba's explanation of Rabbi Meir's view. Do you follow that?
No, but we'll let it go.
Viata Rabbi Yehuda lamemar. And Rabbi Yehuda then comes to say, Shomer china yishava no say sachar yishalem. An unpaid shomer swears, but a paid shomer pays for the loss of the keg. Hey bedine vahai kadine. This one, an unpaid shomer, is treated according to the law appropriate for him, and this one, the paid shomer, is treated according to the law appropriate for him. 8.
Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with Reb Meir's classification of stumbling as negligence. In Rabbi Yehuda's view, stumbling is not negligence, but he agrees that it is not that is not, excuse me, that is not an unavoidable mishap. Furthermore, Rev Yehuda maintains that the rabbis did not institute that one who broke an article from moving, or who broke an article while moving it takes an oath and is free from having to pay. Accordingly, an unpaid shomer who broke an article stumbling need not pay for it because he was not negligent, but a paid shomer is indeed obligated to pay.
Yeah, that was 8.
Yeah.
Viata Rabbi Elazar Memar. And Rabbi Elazar then comes, then Rabbi Elazar, 9.
C82B note 8.
He then comes to say, Ein Gemara Karabi Meir. Yes, the accepted tradition does accord with the view of Rabbi Meir. Umihu tameha ani im yecholim ze v'ze lishamva. However, I wonder how each one can swear and does not have to pay. Bishlama shomer chinam. It is in order for the case of an unpaid shomer. Mishtaba shelo pasha ba. An unpaid shomer swears that he was not negligent with the keg and is thereby free from having to pay for it. Ella shomer sachar amai mishtaba. But as for a paid shomer, why does he swear not to have to pay? Kilo pasha nami ba'e shalume. Even if he does not even if he was not negligent, he still must pay. That's why he doesn't have to swear. Rev Eliezer asks further. V'afilu shomer china nami. And even an unpaid shomer, ha tanach, bimkom madron. It is acceptable that he does not have to pay if he stumbled on the sloping surface. Shalom bimkom madron. But if he stumbled on the surface that was not sloping, mi matzeh mishtaba shalo pasha. How can he swear that he was not negligent and thereby free himself from having to pay? Rabbi Eliezer continues. V'afilu bimkom madron nami. And even if an unpaid shomer stumbled on a sloping surface, how can he be free from having to pay merely by swearing? Ha tenach heva deleka ra'aya. This is acceptable only where there is no possibility of proving his case. That is, the accident was not seen by a witness. Cheva deika ra'aya. But where there is the possibility of proving his case, that is, the accident was seen by witnesses, nete da'aya v'yiparter. Let him bring proof, that is, testimony of witnesses, that he was not negligent, and only then will he be free from having to pay. The Tanya, it was taught in the Baraisa. Im ben Yehuda Omer. Isi ben Yehuda says, Ein ro'ed shavuat Hashem tiyeh bein shenehem. Scripture states, without observers, the oath of Hashem shall be between them both. From this we infer, ha yesh ro'eh. But if there were observers who saw the accident, yavi ra'ayah v'yipater. The shomer must bring proof, that is, the testimony of these observers, and only then will he be free from having to pay. 10.
Are we getting a little repetitious here, or am I missing something?
Yeah, it seems that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just going over and over the same point.
But it's not even going over the point. It's saying the same thing again and again.
Although
Yeah,
now
different people.
Now it's added, though, that it's all about the witnesses.
That's
That's true.
true.
If you have witnesses, that's one thing. If you don't have witnesses, you were negligent.
Hmm.
I mean, that's how I'm reading it now.
What'd you say, Scott?
Different people putting emphasis on the different aspects of the same thing.
That's our two differences.
So 10, the
Yeah.
objections posed by Rev Eliezer, the Tana, to Rev Meir's view, as it was explained by Rev Chia Bar Abba, appeared to be the same as Rev Eliezer's objections to Rev Meir's view, as it was explained above by Rev Elazar the Amora. See note 3. But if this is so, the following difficulty must be addressed. Since Rev Eliezer agrees that Rev Meir's view is the accepted tradition, evidently Rev Eliezer agrees that the rabbis did indeed enact a special exemption in this case. Why then did Rev Eliezer express astonishment at Rev Meir's ruling that a porter who breaks a keg through stumbling is not required to pay?
Yeah.
Ritva answers that the rabbinic enactment applies only in cases of stumbling, which, in Rev Eliezer's view, is generally not negligence. Therefore, if a shomer broke a keg without negligence, the rabbinic enactment does indeed apply. But if he was negligent, that is, he stumbled on a level surface, for example, he stumbled on a level surface, the enactment does not apply, and both a paid shomer and an unpaid shomer should be obligated to pay.
10.
Um,
Don't
First
move your friend's
paragraph.
keg.
do you want to go all the way to the end? Or
No, I don't think we're
stop
gonna
here?
make it. Stop here, we'll finish up next time and go on to the next book. We'll
Okay.
have some sort
Give
of
everybody an
transition
opportunity.
between the two.
Give everybody an opportunity to participate.
That's true.
Okay, so we're on 83A2, the Gemara records.
Yep.
And all we have is a half a page on the next page, and that's it.
Yeah, we got
That's
this
not even
page.
half a
and-
page.
Yeah, and a bit more. I wouldn't even go for half. No, a couple of paragraphs.
We did pretty well today.
Yeah, and we will all finish it together next time and go on to book 3.
Sounds
Mhm.
good.
Sounds like the plan.
All right, everyone. Have a
Have a
good
good week.
Yeah, you too.
Yes.
Don't carry anyone else's
Bye,
keg.
all.
I'm
Don't-
rolling it. I'm rolling it. I'm not letting it
Don't-
break.
Don't stumble
drinking
while
it first.
carrying kegs.
Make it lighter.
I'm not a big wine fan.
See ya.
You guys have a good week.
You
You
too.
too. See you guys.